Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, fire danger statewide and here at home with critical weather conditions on the horizon. An update on the fires burning north of us and the warnings in place for San Diego. Plus, those wildfire risks could soon force school closures in the county, what parents and students should expect. And the NCAA announces a game changer, how local athletic directors feel about students making money off endorsement deals. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 29th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Wildfire danger in San Diego and across the state is intensifying with strong Santa Ana winds moving in. More than 26 million people are under red flag warnings from California to Arizona as fires rage to the north of us. Nadia Romero begins our coverage explaining the current situation across the state.
It's a tale of two regions, Northern and Southern California. The Kincaid Fire and the Getty Fire. Both unpredictable, both spreading, both forcing people to flee.
Oh my God, I'm so scared.
Leaving once populated neighborhoods free from signs of life. What's still to come?
The danger has not passed yet, and we continue to monitor the situation.
Wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour in the north and as high as 80 miles per hour in the south.
Those can pick up and transfer the fire miles away sometimes.
Windy, dry conditions fueling flames, but threatening lives in a much different way. Up north, it's wine country. Through the eyes of firefighters, the Kincaid Fire's flames surrounding them. Down south, the highly populated Los Angeles County has already seen homes turn to ashes. Evacuation orders continuing, with officials across the state sending out even stronger warnings.
Be prepared to go at a moment's notice.
Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
And as Nadia mentioned, the strongest Santa Ana winds so far are starting tonight, putting the county on high alert for wildfires. Meteorologist Regina Miller has the details.
Well, we're going to be dealing with possibly the strongest Santa Ana event this season as we have winds that are going to be 25 to 35 miles per hour, gusts to 55. But take a look at some of the passes there, the coastal slopes of the Santa Anas. We could see winds gusting up to 80 miles per hour, and the strongest are going to be before sunrise. Because of that, we do have high wind warnings in effect here across the area. Want to show you our futurecast winds. So at 7 p.m. this evening, not too bad, pretty quiet. But then watch what happens during the overnight hours. This is 2 in the morning. Really start to see those winds intensifying with that offshore wind that is very dry. I'll talk about your complete forecast coming up.
And residents in several parts of the county should be aware power outages are possible due to the upcoming weather conditions. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is live now in Del Zura. Matt, what do you have?
Yeah, Maya, this area of Del Zura is one of those spots where SDG&E usually cuts the power during its power safety shutoffs. Now, the utility is warning that more than 41,000 customers may lose their power as conditions are ripe for a wildfire. Here in Del Zura at the Del Zura Mini Market, though, these guys, they are ready. Last week, the owner tells me their power was off for the better part of 3 days. But unlike some other businesses in the area, they've got backup generators to power part of the store and keep some items from going bad, something they had to learn the hard way.
So the first year that we opened, the power went off for 3 days, 4 days. And we had our coolers with ice cream, ice, meat in the back, and we lost everything. So, and with that, it was a big blow, a big hit for us. So we just learned our lessons that we have to invest in something that it's going to help us out in the long run. So we bought 2 generators. It's just pretty much something we have to deal with. I mean, sometimes I don't see it really windy outside that bad for them to shut the power off. But for their safety, I guess they shut the power off.
Yeah, now that owner, he tells me he didn't lose any products last week during those shutoffs. And he said that's because they have their credit card machine. Well, he said that they did lose some business because their credit and debit card machines were down. They were only able to take cash. Now, critics of these power safety shutoffs, like Supervisor Diane Jacob with the county, she says that SDG&E isn't doing this to protect its customers, that they're doing this because they want to keep themselves from not being liable if a wildfire were to start. Earlier today, we asked SDG&E to respond to that.
Our priority and purpose is keeping our communities safe. We've seen a lot of tragedy across the state of California, and we are committed here to never again seeing the type of tragedy that we had in the last decade. So that is what drives us. We are committed to that, and we're going to do what we have to do to keep our communities safe.
Now, a reminder that red flag warning is in effect from late tonight until Thursday evening, and we could see some areas. It's mostly in the areas of the East County, but this is one of those spots that could have their power shut off. SDG&E says they're expecting some of the worst conditions to happen tomorrow morning. We're talking wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour in the East County, and people out here, they're just preparing for the worst. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks for that report, Matt. And schools in Julian could close again this week because of planned power outages from wildfire risks. KPBS education reporter spoke to school leaders about how these closures are affecting instruction.
High schools in California are required to be open at least 180 days each year. But if schools in Julian close again this week, it's likely Julian High School will exceed the 4 days it has allocated as emergency days. With fire season getting longer each year, District Superintendent Patrick Heflin says it's time to start thinking about short-term and long-term solutions to the mountain community's new reality.
I'm concerned that we will eventually need to extend the school year well into the month of June in order for us to get our number of days in.
San Diego Gas and Electric has notified Heflin that it may cut power to the school between Wednesday and Friday. If the school closes on 2 of those days, Heflin said she'll have to ask the state to waive the 180-day requirement. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
And opponents of a ballot measure rallied in front of the county administration building today. They're calling for changes in the way the county approves large developments in the backcountry. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
Save Our San Diego Countryside backers put a measure on the March ballot that will allow residents to decide whether to approve major backcountry developments that don't meet the county's general plan guidelines. Developers, business leaders, and people concerned about high housing costs say that's a bad idea.
We've been monitoring this initiative and looking at the harm that it'll cause to San Diego region.
They want voters to reject the Yes on SOS measure.
If there is a countywide vote, voters are not required to consider that local input. I think it's fundamentally a bad idea to have voters very far away from something be able to vote on it. It's not going to be near them. It's not going to affect them. It doesn't make sense to put that out for all these people to vote on when they have no idea of the immediate surroundings.
Right now, San Diego County supervisors can grant exceptions to the general plan's development guidelines, something they've done repeatedly. Critics of the measure say making land use development decisions at the ballot box is a fundamentally bad approach. Backers of Yes on SOS say letting developers do that is just as bad.
Today, California for the past 4 or 5 days is burning down, and the kinds of projects that are threatened by the fires are these kinds of projects. So why, when we have plenty of land to do infill development in the cities and plenty of land to build housing in the unincorporated area, why would we put more people in danger by building more sprawl development?
SOS supporters say a sprawl development in the backcountry has no chance of getting mass transit, and that increases the climate cost for those projects. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a new behavioral health services hub in Hillcrest today. KPBS's Annika Colbert has details on the vote.
The approval today will repurpose an old, unused county property off of 3rd Avenue into a psychiatric services hub. The new hub will offer multiple services like crisis stabilization, inpatient, and outpatient care. County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher says the vote today is about breaking the cycle of treatment and discharge from mental health services. He said right now the only way for people to get into the system is to call police.
And then there's only 2 options for them to take you. They take you to jail, they take you to the emergency department. We treat you well, we get you well, we discharge you. Where do we discharge you? Generally back to the condition you were before, and we wait for you to have another episode and call 911. And so the notion of recreating that entire model where the right person is getting the right treatment at the right time in an integrated, coordinated system truly flips the paradigm.
The new hub includes support from UC San Diego Health and Scripps Health to streamline coordination of services. Another hub is planned for the campus of Palomar Medical Center in Escondido. Annika Colbert, KPBS News.
At least 3 people across multiple San Diego high schools have tested positive for mumps. Health and Human Services confirmed the cases today. The contagious virus was found at High Tech High School, La Jolla High School, and San Pascual High School. The possible exposures at all schools happened within the last 2 weeks. Health officials did not say who was infected, but are warning students and staff to be on the lookout for symptoms, which could include fever, headache, and earache. The virus is spread through close contact with an infected person, and symptoms usually show up between 12 and 25 days after exposure. Nearly 50 cases of mumps have been reported across the county this year, the most in the last 25 years. The best way to avoid getting the virus is to get the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, also known as MMR. San Diego State University has revised its offer to the city for its Mission Valley Stadium site, now offering a lot more money. The university says it's willing to pay $87 million for the land. That's almost $20 million more than the initial offer made just a few weeks ago. City officials said the offer was too low. SDSU is planning to build a new stadium, a river park, apartments, and a satellite campus. Mayor Kevin Faulconer said in a letter on Monday the new offer represents a significant step forward. City council members are expected to discuss the deal next month. Explosive testimony on Capitol Hill. The top Ukraine expert on the White House National Security Council testified in the impeachment inquiry. CNN's Sunlen Sarfati reports.
Bombshell testimony on Capitol Hill.
This is a very, very important moment. This is a person that was there.
From Alexander Vindman, the National Security Council's top Ukraine expert, telling House investigators today he was so troubled by what was happening with Ukraine, he raised concerns twice to his superiors.
We've got all kinds of opinions from several witnesses over the last few weeks, but the fundamental facts are just that, fundamental.
But Vindman is the first witness who was actually on the now famous July 25th phone call between President Trump and the Ukrainian president, telling lawmakers today in his opening statement obtained by CNN that he was concerned by what he heard on the call. I did not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen, and I was worried about the implications for the U.S. government's support of Ukraine. Following the call, Vindman said he reported his concerns to the NSC's lead counsel. Earlier that same month, Vindman attended a July 10th meeting in Washington with Ukrainian and U.S. officials, telling lawmakers that Ambassador Sondland started to speak about Ukraine delivering specific investigations in order to secure the meeting with the president, at which time Ambassador Bolton cut the meeting short. At a debriefing afterwards, Vindman testified today that he confronted the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland. Ambassador Sondland emphasized the importance that Ukraine deliver the investigations into the 2016 election, the Bidens and Burisma. I stated to Ambassador Sondland that his statements were inappropriate. Following that meeting, Vindman says he also reported his concerns then to NSC's lead counsel, as did Fiona Hill, the president's former top Russia advisor, who was also in the room. But that directly contradicts what Gordon Sondland told House investigators 2 weeks ago during his deposition on Capitol Hill. Sondland then telling lawmakers, quote, if Ambassador Bolton, Dr. Hill, or others harbored any misgivings about the propriety of what we were doing, they never shared those misgivings with me then or later.
And once again, that was Sunlen Sarfati reporting. The punishment for Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher will stand. Gallagher was convicted of taking a photo with a dead ISIS terrorist this year. Today, the Navy ruled to uphold his sentence. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh explains the decision.
In July, a Navy jury convicted Gallagher of posing with a corpse on a battlefield from an incident that happened in Mosul in 2017. The publicity around the case attracted attention from President Trump, who tweeted about Gallagher before and after his trial. Bob Muth is a military law professor at the University of San Diego and a former Marine JAG officer.
These allegations were very serious. The defense was able to politicize the court-martial in many ways. And so I think that potentially could have longer-term ramifications for how cases will be handled in the future.
After reviewing the case, the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Michael Gilday, upheld the jury's decision Tuesday, including reducing the Navy chief by 1 rank. Gallagher had been acquitted of the most serious war crimes charges. He had wanted the decision thrown out.
He could try to appeal the case through the traditional criminal courts of appeals within the military, or, and due to the unusual nature of the way this case is played out, I think the more probable cause is he's going to make a play to try to seek assistance from the president.
Gallagher had already served time in the brig awaiting trial, so he will not serve additional time in prison. His attorneys have hinted that they may petition the White House for a pardon. The case has already touched off separate reviews of both the SEALs and Navy justice. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
In an unprecedented move, the NCAA is allowing college athletes across the nation to cash in on their name, their image, and their likeness. Today, the Board of Governors voted unanimously to update its rules, allowing athletes to sign endorsement deals by the year 2021. This coming 1 month after Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law allowing sponsorship starting in 2023. Before today's announcement, KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with athletic directors at local colleges about the looming changes.
You ready? Let's do it, man. All right.
Right after Newsom signed the law in September allowing athletes to profit from their image, San Diego State's director of athletics spoke out.
I don't support SB 206 in the sense that they've gone out and created a law that now puts us in direct conflict with the NCAA and NCAA rules.
AD John David Wicker doesn't agree with how the state is handling this, but he's not necessarily against student athletes making money.
We're going to work on finding a way for student athletes to take advantage of those new opportunities.
While SDSU is the only local university with a major football and basketball program, it is not the only school that stands to be impacted by this new legislation. UC San Diego Director of Athletics Earl Edwards also is not against athletes being able to sell their name, image, and likeness.
Whatever we come up with, it needs to be something that's manageable and workable from the student perspective as well as the colleges.
Edwards does say that there is already some unintended consequences from this new law.
There is negative recruiting with individuals saying that if you go to California and this law passes and you're not eligible for NCAA competition because the rules haven't changed in that regard, then that's a problem for us.
Governor Newsom says colleges and universities are making billions while student athletes get nothing.
Everybody's making them. Coaches, athletic directors, assistant coaches, all the advertisers, the programs directly themselves, and everybody but the athletes.
UCSD is not making billions off athletics, and Edwards disagrees that students are being left high and dry.
Something I don't agree with, particularly when you look at the scholarship aspect, when you look at the meals, when you look at the travel. University
of San Diego AD Bill McGillis argues much of the money that's made from athletics goes back to the students.
The universities are not owners in the way that, in the way that professional sport owners have franchises. It's money that stays within the institution and gets reinvested in athletic programs and academic programs that benefit the students.
He also thinks that the NCAA should do a better job of communicating how student athletes are being compensated right now.
So above and beyond books, tuition, fees, room and board, school's covered. Above and beyond that, at the highest levels, which is what I think legislators are most concerned about, those students are also receiving a cost of attendance stipend on average nationally of probably $5,000 cash.
McGillis does say that there needs to be a clear line between college athletes and professional ones.
And I'm not for going down the path of pay for play. Does name, image, and likeness morph into something else, and then something else, and then we're there? I don't think we should go there.
Student athletes we spoke to say change is needed.
I feel like universities make a lot of money off their players, so I don't understand why it's not okay for us to receive some of that money.
I think it's maybe something that
is definitely going to benefit student athletes.
Those are two SDSU football players, some of the region's most high-profile collegiate athletes.
Touchdown, Aztecs!
But what about star athletes from lesser-known sports?
I was kind of bummed that my sport is one of those that are pretty much left out in the situation just because rowing isn't the most popular sport.
Katie Silla is one of the top collegiate rowers in the country. She doesn't believe there would be many opportunities for her to sign an endorsement deal.
I can see maybe some company that provides boats or gear for rowing maybe reaching out, but it's very slim.
But Silla says if the law was in effect now, she would go look for those opportunities.
I would 100% do it because it would just help my well-being and my financial situation.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Santa Ana winds, high temperatures, and dry weather make for dangerous wildfire conditions. We've been dealing with this for weeks, so meteorologist Regina Miller tells us how long we can expect to be on watch.
Red flag warnings are in effect here across the area, and that's going to be from 11 p.m. tonight through 6 p.m. on Thursday, as we've got winds of 25 to 35 miles per hour, but they'll gust to 55. They could gust to near 80 below the Cajon and Banning passes and also on the slopes of the Santa Ana Mountains. I want to show you our futurecast winds starting off at 7 p.m. Not too bad. Where you're seeing the purples and blues, that's where they're more intense. Watch what happens. Purple's coming in here for the nighttime hours. This is around 2 in the morning. So the winds start to intensify, and then they really intensify through the morning hours. Our dew points will be dropping as well. So any of the moisture that we have early on, it's going to start to drop, and that is going to take our relative humidity down to about 5 to maybe 10%. Tonight's forecast, we're at 42 in Borrego Springs. Those winds really start to increase. Mount Laguna will have the gusty winds. And then for tomorrow, 69 degrees in Borrego Springs, very windy conditions in Mount Laguna at 50 degrees. On the coast, we're going to see the windy conditions continuing into Thursday, but then they start to diminish, and then it's much better as we head towards the weekend. And we've got the windy conditions inland areas on Wednesday, sunshine breezy on Thursday. Warming up for the weekend, winds die down, and we've got the windy conditions in the mountains, especially Wednesday and Thursday. As we take a look at the desert locations, we'll start to heat up, winds diminish towards the weekend. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
It's a scary figure when it comes to Halloween spending. Americans are expected to spend nearly $9 billion this holiday. And the big winners this year are pets, with people dishing out nearly $500 million on costumes for their fur kids. Mary Maloney has more in today's Consumer Watch.
Are you dressing up your pup or fur ball for Halloween? You're not alone, and social media sites are helping fuel the popular trend. According to the National Retail Federation, shoppers will spend about $490 million on pet costumes this year. That number is more than double what the NRF saw nearly a decade ago. The survey found 29 million people plan to dress their pets in costume for Halloween. Top costumes this year include pumpkins, hot dogs, and superheroes. The survey also suggests people are looking to social media for Halloween inspiration, with many pet parents showing off their dressed-up furry friends online. And it's not just pets. The NRF also says people turn to sites like YouTube and Pinterest to find creative inspiration for that ideal costume for themselves. Overall, those celebrating Halloween expect to spend about $86 on average this year, with costumes being the biggest expense, followed by decorations and candy. The top costumes for adults this year are witch, vampire, and superhero. Happy haunting! For Consumer Watch, I'm Mary Maloney.
And speaking of Halloween costumes, a Massachusetts father pulled an idea from his family tree for an epic costume for his son. Jason Law reports.
What do you think, Tommy?
The big reveal.
Today's the big day. We're going to dress you up.
The moment when 15-year-old Tommy Hardy no longer sees his wheelchair. Instead, he sees himself in the cockpit, piloting an iconic Air Force jet, the SR-71 Blackbird.
The creativity in this garage is just amazing.
For the last month, Tommy's dad and friends have put in nearly 100 hours, using parts from around the garage to create this Halloween costume.
I think it's a great family tradition that we have.
Tommy has cerebral palsy. He's living with autism and is nonverbal. But Dad says he's your typical teenager who loves Halloween.
To watch Tommy light up, and not only watch him light up, trick-or-treating as a kid, but also seeing the other kids around him just being so like, wow, that's an awesome costume, bud. You know, they're not looking at him like he's in a wheelchair. They're just seeing an awesome costume, just a little kid going out having some fun.
In recent years, Tommy has been an X-Wing fighter from Star Wars, rode one of the dragons from Game of Thrones, and last year stopped traffic in this Haverhill police car.
The real detail this year is the wood that we used to form the plane.
But this year's costume has a very special meaning for this family.
We actually got a photo of the SR-71 cockpit. So we cut that out, laminated it, and then also added my father and my mother from their military days.
Tommy's grandparents were both in the Air Force, and both passed away this year.
Trying to dedicate this costume to my family. My parents were huge supporters of what we did doing this each year, so we wanted to give something back.
Every year we just amaze ourselves. It's just a lot of fun.
Absolutely amazing. And that custom build only cost them about $75. This is the 4th year the family has been able to pull off such a feat. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.